Hi, Daily Movie Recap here. Today I'm going to explain an American horror film called Hereditary. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie starts by showing a remember speech.
My mother was a very secretive and private woman. She was a very difficult woman to read.
Annie didn't have that good of a relationship with her mother, so she doesn't seem that sad. We can see the family memorializing their grandmother, and Charlie is glaring at his dead grandmother. At that moment, someone smiles while watching Charlie.
It does feel weird. It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby.
You never cried as a baby. Did you feel like you wanted to cry today? Night, sweetheart.
While cleaning her mother's mementos, Annie discovers a letter. The letter was full of words that she couldn't understand, and feeling awful, Annie tries to turn off the lights and leave, but her dead mother stood there. The next day, Charlie was playing with a weird headless toy.
So maybe we finish the toy after the quiz.
Okay.
Then, a pigeon crashed onto the window. After class ends, Charlie searches for that pigeon outside, and oh my god, it cuts off its head with scissors. And once again, someone watches what Charlie is doing and starts to wave at Charlie. Meanwhile, Annie, who has been working hard, goes to greet her husband, getting back from work, but for some reason, her dead mother's room door is open. No one has since been into her room after her death, but the door was opened.
Did you go to my mom's room?
No.
Door was open.
Feeling strange, Annie tells her husband, and as she locks the door, her husband gets a phone call.
Hello? Yes? What does that mean?
The phone call was from the gravekeeper, and it was about how Annie's mother's grave had been vandalized. But Steve buries the news and doesn't tell Annie because he doesn't want things to get out of hand.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go see a movie.
Okay.
In fact, after her mother's death, Annie had been attending an emotional therapy group without telling her family. There she tries to find peace by sharing her story to the participants, but the trauma wasn't that easy to overcome.
She would ever feel guilty about anything. Or not that I'm to blame, but I am blamed.
The next day, Peter borrows Annie's car to attend to a party later that night.
You gonna take your sister?
Does she want to go?
Annie lends Peter her car under the condition that he takes Charlie. Unwilling, Peter takes his annoying brother Charlie and heads to the party. In fact, the reason Peter came to this party was to confess his feelings to the girl he's been having a crush on for a long time.
Oh, hi.
How's the party? Do you want to wait out here for a second?
No.
As he sets the mood to confess, Peter is annoyed by his brother who keeps talking to him. Peter is having a good time after telling his brother to go and enjoy his cake. But then Charlie makes another entrance and breaks the mood, telling Peter that he suddenly couldn't breathe.
Are you okay?
It's hard to breathe. I think my throat's getting bigger.
Charlie is allergic to peanuts, and the cake that he ate had peanuts hidden inside. I wonder if they should have just taken out the peanuts in the cake. Due to the allergic reaction, Charlie's throat starts to close, becoming harder to breathe. Frustrated, he tries to breathe by sticking his head out the window. A tragedy occurs. A ridiculous catastrophe in an instant. Not being able to believe the situation, Peter returns home quietly. The next day, the house is filled with Annie's screams. The guilt from killing his brother starts to break Peter's mentality.
Hey, are you guys friends with Becky on Facebook? dude, are you alright?
Not as much as Peter, but the continued loss of family destroyed what's left of Annie's mentality. Her only escape was the emotional therapy group that she attends in secret from her family. There she meets a new woman named Joan.
Are you doing better?
What?
After your mother?
What? No, that's not... My daughter was killed.
Oh.
She, like Annie, also has a scar of losing a family member.
How old was yours? 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13. 13.
My son and my grandson drowned. I've been coming here for a couple of months now, and it has helped. And now I'm about to embarrass myself, but if you need someone to talk to.
Did they feel sympathy toward each other because they went through the same pain? Annie and Joan started to get close really quickly, and Annie is invited to Jones's house. But Joan starts to speak nonsense to Annie after she sat her down. In fact, it was sort of a chant to lure in the ghosts. Annie should have opened the door and got back home. It was the start of all the misfortunes. Joan starts to call out her dead grandson's name. The cup starts to move as if it was responding to a grandmother's desperate call.
Hi, Louis. Louis, are you okay?
The blackboard starts to scribble on its own with no one around.
Oh, Louis, I love you, sweetheart. Louis, we're gonna stop for a second, but I'll be right back. First, light the candle. Then choose an item that belonged to your daughter. You didn't kill her, Annie. She isn't gone.
She should have suspected something right there, but Annie's mentality was so devastated that she believed in such events. Joan teaches Annie, who misses Charlie dearly, and she starts to think about it. That night, Annie tries to sleep after coming back home, but ants start to crawl on her belly. Wondering where all these ants came from, she follows a trail of ants, but at the end was Peter in all his tragedy.
Mom, what are you doing?
He was her son, but she never forgave him for killing Charlie.
I never wanted to be your mother.
Then why did you have me?
It wasn't my fault. I tried to stop it. I tried to have a miscarriage. However I could. I did everything they told me not to do, but it didn't work.
Why did you try to kill me?
I was trying to save you.
The next day, Annie thinks everything will be solved if she calls Charlie and talks to him. The fact that she was willing to call out to the dead, Annie was not sane. Anyways, Annie calls all her family and starts the chant she learned from Joan. After taking all the steps of the ritual, she carefully calls out to Charlie.
Charlie, are you here? Charlie, it's Mommy. And Daddy and Peter. Now, if you're in here, Charlie, I want you to move the glass for us.
And unbelievably, Charlie responds to Annie's call. But not being able to believe the situation no matter how hard he tried, Steve wants to stop the ritual. Annie couldn't give up because she met Charlie after such a long time. Steve tries to stop Annie, and right there, something strange starts to happen to Annie. As if she was possessed by a ghost, she starts to babble strangely and seems to get violent as well. Peter starts to get frightened by his mother's sudden change, and barely she came back to her senses thanks to Steve spraying cold water at her. Of course, she doesn't remember any of what she did, but after that day, for some reason, Peter started to hallucinate, and it got worse day by day.
Hello?
Peter just called me, Annie. Terrified, crying in the halls.
What does that mean?
It means that that's what I'm worried about right now, and that's how...
Watching Peter become worse, Annie decides to protect Peter instead of Charlie, who passed.
Charlie?
You were pulling on my head!
What? No, I wasn't. I just came in. You were screaming. What happened? I don't know what's happening or what you just saw, but I'm stopping this. I'm the only one who can fix this.
And thinks that the ritual that called Charlie was a source for everything. Annie tries to burn the notebook, but it's not as easy as it seems. In order to protect Peter, Annie looks for Joan, hoping for a miracle. And as expected, Joan's door is locked. And inside her house was a picture of Peter. At that moment, Annie realized something. She went straight home and started looking through the memento. What she found was her mother's album and books about worshipping the devil. Inside was pictures of Joan and her mother together, photos of Annie's family that seemed to be taken in an attic. Annie heads straight for the attic. There she finds the corpse of her dead mother. Meanwhile, in school, Peter starts to hurt himself as if it was possessed. He barely makes it home with his dad's help.
Oh my God! What happened? What happened to him?
He did apparently to himself.
And Annie asks for Steve's help, telling him about her mother's corpse in the attic. They head to the attic. There really was the grandmother's corpse, just as Annie said.
My friend, her grandson died. She took me in her apartment. This is my mother's album. See this? See her? That's her. That's Joan. And look at that pattern. Did you see up there? This was painted above the body.
You dug up the grave.
But they put a curse on us when we brought Charlie back. We made a pact with something.
Annie tells Steve the whole story and tells him that by getting rid of Charlie's notebook, they can save Peter.
We have to do this, please, please, please. I need you to trust me, Steve. Please, I need you to throw it in the fire. Oh, Steve, please understand.
In order to get rid of this notebook, she tells him that she needs to sacrifice herself and asks for help. But Steve couldn't understand and thinks Annie's crazy. I will be thinking the same thing too, sacrificing oneself in order to burn a notebook. Thinking Steve won't help, Annie throws the book into the fire, and suddenly Steve's body starts to burn. Confused with the unexpected event, eventually Annie faints, and then something takes over Annie. That night, awakened Peter goes into the living room. After finding his father burned to death, he goes into panic, and his mother, Annie, staring at Peter. Suddenly a chase starts. Peter barely makes it to the attic and hides.
Stop! Mom, please stop! Mommy?
And Peter finds a picture of himself with the eyes cut out.
Come on. You're okay. Just wake up.
He wished that moment was a dream. What he found was Annie hurting herself. Not being able to take it anymore, Peter chooses to end his life. Once again, something possesses Peter's body. And the headless Annie starts to head to a hut. Possessed Peter also starts to head to the hut. What is in the hut that Annie and Peter was headed to? What was the evil spirit that possessed Annie and Peter's bodies? Until now, it was the movie Hereditary. The movie Hereditary is a horror and thriller film about the mysterious things happening in a house after their grandmother's death. If the typical horror film scared the audience with its scary scenes, this unique movie gave chills to the audience with its dreary and frightening atmosphere. Especially due to the acting of the cast alongside Annie acting out the possessions caught their attention and made the film frightening on a whole nother level. I will end this introduction video by recommending the movie Hereditary to those who are tired of the typical horror thriller films. Until now, it was Daily Movies Recap. Thank you.
Driving till midnight just to turn around. Wish I knew where I was going now. 'Cause I'm not the same that I used to be. But some